Washington football. Woo! Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael Hall. Reed will not be joining us here today. He woke up late because they're still getting over the hangover of the flu. But the Burgundy Zone is a part of the Frederick Podcast Network. You can find out more by going to www.listenfrederick.com. And we are not only joined by one guest, but we are joined by two guests. And these two guests are not only very special in their own right, but they are very intellectual. They have a lot of knowledge to be able to spread, and so we thought to kick off this offseason, with tomorrow being the kind of tampering period starts the NFL free agency, we thought we'd bring in none other than Ian Cummings and Matt Valdovinos, two friends of their own. How are you boys doing on the Sunday?
Doing good. Happy to be on here with Matt. I know we've been it goes way back with Washington for sure, back to the Kirk Cousins days. So it's been a long time coming for sure. The Commanders though finally have an exciting offseason. I think free agency starts Monday, and you guys have like $100 million in cap to use, right? So it's gonna be fun, fireworks. I'm excited, but even happy to be here with you guys.
Yeah, I'm stoked. Ian's one of my favorite people. Literally the very beginning of my coverage career, analyst career,
Rigo's
writing
Rag,
career.
man.
There,
Yes,
shout out Rigo's Rag.
Yes,
And then on to PFN too. It's always just been a great time. Love to work with Ian. He's made me so much better than what I do. So just always glad to see him get his flowers and do his great things at PFN.
Yeah, the draft encyclopedia, as I like to say. But to start this off, Ian, my question for you, sir, like you've told us before about Drake Maye, that you think that he's probably the best prospect at quarterback in this draft. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, Ian. I know we could talk all day about what Drake Maye does, his upside, but from your perspective, what are the negatives of Drake Maye, and are they difficult to be able to projecting into fix at the NFL level?
Yeah, and it's always kind of it's an imperfect, inexact science. It always is every year, right? And so the best we can do is learn from our previous mistakes, right? Kind of see how we can implement those lessons into new evaluations. So I think with Drake Maye, there is that uncertainty a little bit. And we've kind of seen, I'm glad that you asked that, because it feels like a strengthening movement, and we see this every cycle. There's always some guy that's, I don't want to say overthought, right? Because there are reasons to have reservations sometimes. But, even last cycle, CJ Stroud, there was,
Right.
and the S2 score was a big part of that too. But then, other prospects in the past too. And it is an inexact science. And there players like Zach Wilson, right? Mitch Trubisky, who some people were high on in the lead up, and then they ended up fading out at the NFL level, right? So it's like you take lessons from that. With Drake Maye, I think obviously I've talked about the strengths at length, right? I think with weaknesses for me, you talk about projectability, right? And how it makes it difficult to project. And obviously situational factors, supporting cast, that always plays an effect. But I think for weaknesses, what is harder to project growth from, I think you can break it down into pre-throw execution and throw execution, right?
Okay.
So pre-throw execution, obviously pre-snap reads, diagnosis of the defense, right? Your drop back mechanics, right? The vision you're processing from read to read, anticipation, right? Manipulating the DBs to give yourself optimal looks, right? Being able to control the field with your eyes. Those things are pre-throw execution. And then you have throw execution, which is basically mechanics, accuracy, situational placement, things like that, right? So I think for me, it's a little bit easier to project if a player has the pre-throw execution traits, right? So that's the biggest thing for Drake Maye, kind of delineating into those two categories, because I think two of the biggest things with Maye, right, is the mechanics. And here's the thing, with any prospect, you need to have a heightened degree of nuance and detail, right? You can't just say he's inaccurate, because he's not inaccurate. I think there's a little bit higher variance with him, right? Some of the misses are a little bit iffy where you're like, oh shoot, like he did leave a little bit too much air there. But some of the glimpses of situational precision are just on a dime, man. I mean, it's really impressive what he can do when he is controlled. So it's not that he's inaccurate or that he has bad mechanics. It's that it's higher variance. Do you have something you want to say?
No, sorry. I was after you were done, I was actually going to ask a backup question to Matt to branch off of that. So keep going.
I got you. All right. So yeah, kind of branching off of that, I think with Drake Maye, two of the biggest things that I would say in the negatives for him is the mechanics. He's got very good pocket navigation, right? He has a very good feel for how to slide away from pressure and keep options open. But his base width, his footwork can be a little inconsistent on release, and that can kind of precipitate to inconsistencies in the upper half, which can cause, situational precision lapses. And then at the same time, too, when he's going off platform or in pressure situations, that's where you can arm it a little too much and push it past guys, right? So I think in high pressure situations, and then also when he's moved off his spot, that's when the mechanics and the accuracy can suffer a little bit. And then also, lapses in decision making too, which for a young QB, that's not out of the ordinary. You expect that. It's pretty normal, right? So those are areas where he can improve. On a down to down basis, not quite as accurate as a Caleb Williams, right? But I think you look at the pre-throw execution with him, and that's what gives me solace. That's where I can say, hey, he needs to improve his mechanics, his base width a little bit, right? Under pressure, those are things that he can work on. But the dude is a very good processor. He's a very good pocket navigator. Again, his leverage IQ, both with his footwork and his navigation and with his eyes working the field, those are things that I think help counteract that and help him build off of that eventually once he hones his mechanics even more, right? And then, the anticipation, the DB manipulation, there are some really impressive throws. I think Georgia Tech is probably the best game if you want to look for examples of this, where he's actively using his eyes and his shoulder alignment. He did this against South Carolina a couple of times as well. But there are throws, especially down the field, those drive throws, those vertical shots. Those are his best throws, where he's actively using his shoulders and his feet to misalign safeties and open windows for himself and then throw his receivers open. So anticipation, processing, control, mechanical control, those are all things that speak to me and say this guy has a high level natural feel for some of the really important quarterbacking things. So I can look at the mechanics and the accuracy and say I'm willing to take some lumps early on with that because I think the high level tools are there on the intangible side. So you ask about projectability. That's kind of how I break it up. Pre-throw execution, throw execution. Does he have the pre-throw stuff? If he does, then I'm a little more comfortable seeing it out with the development on the operational side.
I got you. Now, Matt, my question for you, sir. One player that Washington, just being smart about this, because Washington most likely is going to be going a certain route in that first round. In the second round, one name that's really intriguing to me is Jordan Morgan. Obviously, Washington let go of Charles Leno, so they're in need of a starting left tackle at the moment. I think Cornelius Lucas is a free agent at the moment, if I'm not mistaken. But Jordan Morgan, do you project him as being a starting left tackle right away on day one?
Yeah, I really like Jordan Morgan. The feet and the athletic ability, I think, to play onto the outside. I know a lot of people translate it to the inside to guard, especially with his length and his body frame, and I understand it. With a lot of the guys who are the tackle guard fringes, I think most of them, I think, are capable of playing tackle with the NFL because you just see a lack of talent there regardless. So considering some of the people who do play in the NFL at tackle, I just think that it would make more sense, even if they don't have those length requirements that some teams expect, that you can just play them in the tackle anyways. But some teams have those arm length prerequisites, and if you don't make it, they're just going to play you at guard. So it kind of depends on where he's going to go. But for Washington specifically, a pretty interesting stat that not a people know, and I might have said this last time I was here. Jordan Morgan played more snaps this past year coming off an ACL tear than Amarius Mims has in his entire career. And Mims might be like a top 12 pick. Yeah. So it's pretty crazy. Like this is a guy who has reps at left tackle, who played in the Pac-12, that always produces a lot of good edge talent. So I just think with all the film that we have on him, is he going to be a top 5, top 10 tackle in the NFL? Probably not, but you're also drafting him outside of the first round. Those guys are usually picked in the top 15 picks. And so
I do want to ask you, Matt, real quick, because obviously he had that ACL tear, I think it was 2022 or 21. Mm-hmm. Did you think he was still rehabbing from that this season, even going through and starting every game?
I mean, yeah, you just don't have confidence in your leg when you go through something like that until you have actual game reps. And you can see him get a little more comfortable throughout the season. But coming off of the ACL tear, I thought he looked fantastic for what he had just been through. Like I never expected him to just right out of the gate be at a similar level of play who was, and it was pretty close. It wasn't a noticeable drop back for me personally.
I got you. Sorry, Hall.
No, all good. So getting back to the quarterback prospects, every year we have a riser when it comes to the quarterbacks, and this year it looks like it's going to be J.J. McCarthy. People are projecting him inside the top 10, somewhere around there. What are some of the positives now that we got into this into the process of the draft and whatnot? What are some of the positives coming out about him that kind of are intriguing NFL teams about what he can be in the NFL?
Yeah, I'll go first real quick because I think it's pretty simple with him. I mean, there's a lot of nuance to any QB evaluation, but sometimes it's as simple as he's young, he's talented. Yep. Let's see it through, right? And he's only 21 years old. You got Penix, Nix, Daniels. They're all going to be 24 as rookies, right? So you have 3 years of developmental runway for him. He's very athletic. He's got a very good arm, right? And there are flashes of operational utility on film, the anticipation, the fearlessness to test those middle of the field windows, and I think early in the season, the pocket navigation and poise looked improved for sure. I think the overarching consistency is still where you want him to improve there. And we didn't quite see it as much as we wanted to, but he's young, he's talented, there's scarcity past the top two guys. So I think that in turn, as simple as it sounds, as simple as you don't want to make it that simple sometimes. Like you're like, there's got to be more to it, right? But he's 21 years old and he's got that physical talent. I think that's enough to elevate his stock.
And it definitely helps to have Harbaugh in the NFL now. I'm sure that he's
Yeah.
bumping elbows with people, letting him know. Do you have a question for Matt Hall?
Yeah, jumping back to the tackles, who are some guys on the back end of that first round? Say Washington trades back into the first round. Who are some guys you're looking at? Maybe Washington can get into the back end of the first round.
Talise.
Or Fontenot. That's the dream. That is the dream. He always has been, and he always will be the dream. Some people are projecting him to be as high as like a top 15 pick now.
You said Troy Fontenot, right?
Yeah, the Washington left tackle.
Yeah.
Kind of similar with the Jordan Morgan thing. People are, the guard talk, and I even have him ranked as an interior offensive lineman just because you can't fight the NFL, right? If they take him to be a guard, they're going to play him at guard. So it is what it is. But absolutely think he has what it takes to be a tackle. I think the tackle tape is among the best in the class. Obviously, the tackle measurables and tools aren't there. That's why he's not going to get picked before some of these guys. But if a team, especially like a playoff team, had Amarius Mims and Troy Fontenot in the, on the board waiting to pick and they need a left tackle, I understand the swing with Amarius Mims and I expect the teams higher up to do that. But if you just want a guy that is going to play solid left tackle for you for the next 10 years, I mean, that's just the guy that it projects so easily for me. I think the tape's arguably the best among any offensive lineman in the class. And I understand the project issues, but that's the dream. If, Adam Peters and them wanted to move up, go out there 23, 24, somewhere in that area, go get him. I'd be so hyped. I'd be running around my living room.
Absolutely.
Fontenot is an interesting one too, because I think at the NFL Combine, he measured in 6'4", 317 with I think 34.5-inch arms.
Yeah. So and he
like,
made it to.
You look at the measurables and the tape, like you said, and the athleticism, I don't think there's anything forcing a move inside the guard.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
One of the biggest issues, especially with tackles, is like flexibility, athleticism, being able to keep up with the speed and quickness, right? And Fontenot has no shortage of that going where he is. It was crazy. The first time I saw him, I thought he was a tight end. When I was first watching Michael Penix, because I was like, who's this dude, wearing like the tight end kind? There's no way that's a big old lineman. No, that's Troy Fontenot, and he's whooping ass.
A lot of guys that let their belly flow.
I absolutely love that, man. I know you do too. Next question I have for you, Ian. This guy I started watching yesterday, and unfortunately for me, I don't have access to all 22. I'm at the will of the provider. One guy, Javon Solomon, the defensive end, I guess you could say, from Troy, even though he's listed by CBS as a linebacker, maybe even a D end somewhat. What about Javon Solomon do you like? Because 16 sacks this year, my goodness, this kid is electric.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the thing. Schematic questions for him is going to be key. What kind of front does Dan Quinn want to run? Because I think you're probably confined to a 3-4 rush linebacker with him because he is a little bit smaller. I think he's around 6'1", 250, but I think he's got pretty good proportional length for his size. If I remember correctly, it's over 33. So you like to see that because he's low to the ground, got that natural leverage, but he can also generate power with that length. And he's bursty, right? He's got great bend. I think he's got a great motor as well, a pretty deep arsenal of rush moves too. So again, I liken him to, you remember James Houston, who went to the Detroit Lions a couple cycles ago on day 3, and he ended up getting 8 sacks in his rookie season. So I think getting a guy who can be that pass rush catalyst, right? He's probably not going to be too much more outside of that. But if you have an odd hybrid front scheme that can accentuate a guy like that, that can be a really good fit for him. I would probably wait until day 3 to take him, if you have an extra day 3 pick. But anywhere between round 4, round 6, I think the athleticism, the physical profile is there to fit that rush linebacker mold very well.
I'm with you. Now, Matt, my question for you is more Washington-centric, and I'm sorry to have to do this to you, but Washington released, obviously, Gates and Leno, and they still have Wiley on the roster. I wouldn't move Cosme, keep him where he is, best year he's had yet. Let's continue that consistency. But with Wiley, obviously this being a new offensive line kind of rebuilding here, what would you do with Wiley?
I'm just more focused on putting starters in the other positions that they just don't have. Right, like this is my thing. We know Sam Cosme is going to be the starter. We know he's going to be a plus starter next year at right guard. We know that, and I understand the fan base's disdain for Leno and Wiley, but we know that Andrew Wiley can play serviceable right tackle, that he is a startable right tackle in this league. He's done it before. And I think in the second half of the year, he was a quality tackle. I don't think he was the reason. And also the sacks got cleaned up in the second half of the year. Sam Howell started to progress a little bit, and then everything hit the fan. Jacoby came in, and then all of a sudden the line looks better. So, do with that what you will. But I just think if you don't have a starter at left tackle, you don't have a starter at left guard, you don't have a starter at center, I don't think you're doing anything positive for the team by moving Wiley off of right tackle. Now, if you say, oh, you can move him to left guard, I guess, right? Like, sure, but why not just go sign a guard or go draft a guard? Go get someone to play guard, and then you have a startable right tackle and a startable right guard instead of having to go try and find another tackle, which is just a lot harder. And I'm also a Ricky Stromberg guy, so it was tough for me to say they don't have a starter at center, but obviously I understand.
It's not that you are crapping on Stromberg, it's just the reality of the situation, new coaches and everything. You know how this goes, man.
Exactly. And there's a rookie quarterback. I understand you don't want a first-year starting center potentially.
Right.
Mitch Morse, though, go save your rookie quarterback with a veteran center. I know the play's falling off just a bit, but at least he understands. He knows what to call protection-wise. He couldn't do that last year.
Sorry, Hall. Sorry, Ian. Real quick, I just want to get nerdy with Matt here for a second. Centers like Connor Williams and others, are there certain names that you would look at into bringing in?
I think everyone else is just mid, to be honest with you. There are guys in the draft that I really like. I think like Jackson Power Johnson is going a little bit higher than I really expect him to. I think he's going to be like right there on the fringe end of the first, early second round. But again, it comes with that rookie center, rookie quarterback conversation. Mitch Morse is the only guy who I'm really like, yeah, I would shell out good money for this just because there's an understanding of what you're doing at center. Connor Williams isn't a career-long center. He's played guard a lot in his career, played guard and played tackle at Texas, right? So he's kind of been all over the offensive line, which has its benefits. But Mitch Morse is the guy that I would really target if I wanted to. It's just a cohesion thing. It's a glue for the rest of the offensive line.
I'm with you. Sorry, Hall.
No, yeah. So you were speaking about free agency, and obviously the big, not really big news, but the most talked about thing with Washington is been about Cam Curl, 7th round gem that they found, played multiple positions all over the field. Are you guys surprised that they didn't kind of not really prioritize Cam, but they didn't get a deal done? And I guess if they go with the younger guys, what do they see in the guys like Quan Martins and Percy Butlers that can make them say, hey, we can move off from Curl because we got confidence in these young guys?
Let Matt answer that first. Sorry, Hall. Let Matt go. And then, Ian, if you can provide anybody in the draft that could be a good replacement for it.
Yeah, for sure.
It's tough because everyone loves Cam, right? Like every Washington fan, big Cam Curl guy. It's just one of the, I think me and Ian were probably working at Rigo's Rag together covering the team when he got drafted. Mm-hmm. And I definitely posted an article saying like, I didn't see it with this guy. Because Arkansas used him a little weird. Like they played him a lot up at the line of scrimmage and he was just kind of, he was like 195 in college. And so when he came here and he played more safety, he was forcing turnovers and then there were issues at safety. So then we had to play him more up at the line of scrimmage, which he can do because he had the history of doing it in the SEC and it moved over well, but it's just tough. And I think when you look at this safety free agent market, none of these teams are giving these safeties contracts. And some of these teams are just cutting off these safeties contracts. So I think it was wise of Adam Peters in the front office to say, hey, let's let this play out. And unfortunately, it's really tough if Cam takes it to a point where it's like, I don't want to sign with you because you didn't want to sign me. Even if we're offering him one of the better deals in the market, it's just really hard. And I think in terms of the other guys that they have, Derek Forrest, Percy Butler, and then obviously Quan Martin, it's a young quality group of safeties. And I know the secondary was pretty awful last year. Percy Butler's got some tackling issues. Derek Forrest has some injury issues. I thought Quan was fantastic towards the end of the year. So I'm really excited. But also he's probably going to be realistically your nickel corner. And Joe Witt called it the Buffalo nickel, which is wild. I don't know if anyone saw that coming after the Ron Rivera Buffalo nickel.
He knows Washington better than most, I will say.
Yeah, go figure. And so, but I think that's just also what they use, right? Like a lot of these teams use a lot of similar vocabulary, a lot of similar monikers. And Quan Martin fits that really, really well. And he also is a very smart player, forces turnovers. That's what Joe Witt likes. And so I think Quan Martin's kind of like that new age Cam Curl. You just spent 6 rounds higher in the draft to get him. But It is what it is. And if Cam wants to come back and it's at like that 8 mil mark, that 10 is kind of where like the line is for me. And so I think they would love him back. I'm not sure if he would love to be back just because of the way things unfolded, but it's just tough with the ownership and the regime change. Like it's hard, and I get it, but
It's life.
they have talent on the roster as well.
They do.
Right.
What do you say to that, Ian?
Yeah, for sure. I was kind of surprised they didn't bring him back because he's young, he's talented, and you have a role for him, and they got so much cap to use, right? I mean, that was the biggest thing for me. But we've seen, how many safeties are getting released. Like, I think Xavier McKinney from the Giants is going to hit free agency. You've got Justin Simmons from the Broncos. I mean, you've got Quandre Diggs. Like, so many guys who, and they're different styles, right? Not all of them are going to match that curl role,
Right.
but there is a lot of talent available. So I'm curious to see if they splurge and get a guy. If they don't, though. I think the NFL draft does have some options for you. It depends on where you want to get a guy. Because I look at 36 and 40, those two picks.
Yep.
If a guy like Tyler Nubin is there, like I'm sprinting to the podium, man. I'm sprinting. I mean, especially with, Quan Martin talking about him probably going to be your nickel guy. So you want a guy, ideally, who can play too high or come into the box a little bit, right? I think those are the biggest two quadrants for you to fill at that safety spot. Too high, if you can play single high as well, great, more versatility for you, but also have the tackling ability to play in the box and support. And I think Tyler Nubin best fits that definition for you. 6'2", 205, one of the highest IQ guys, most instinctive players that I've watched in this class, but then also very explosive in the half field range, really good tackler, incredible ball skills, recognition, right? So, and then very fluid on his pedal too. He doesn't have top end range or speed, but for his size, I think the coverage mobility is very, very appealing. So Tyler Nubin is probably at the top of my list if you're looking for safeties, right? If you want to go a little bit farther down, Malik Mustafa from Wake Forest is one that I really like. He's around 5'10", 210 pounds. So he's rocked up, man. He's very explosive. Yeah, yeah. He flies to the ball, man. He just erases space. So that's the fun one for me. I think in coverage, a little bit more projectability. Or not projection, right? I think Tyler Nubin is a little bit easier to project because he's so instinctive. But Malik Mustafa, all the flashes are there on tape. The dude is crazy explosive, rangy. You can play too high. He can pedal in too high, and he's flashed the ability to play single high too. I think the reaction is just not quite as fast as Nubin, but he can play off man in the slot too if you need him to. He can go and support. So the versatility is there with him as well. Those are two guys that come to mind for me. But then at the same time, if you need a guy who can play support on day 3, you got Evan Williams, Keaton Oladapo, Tyke Smith. I mean, some of these guys are going to overlap with that nickel role as well, but some of them can play safety too. So I think this class, within that range, you have a lot of options to choose from.
My man. All right, boys. To wrap this up, I'm going to ask you boys both a question first. We could go flip-flop each time. So if Ian goes first, Matt second, the next question, Matt will go first, all right? This one I have for you boys. Let's say at number 40, they took a quarterback in the first round. Let's say they got an edge guy in the first pick at 36 in the second round. Sitting at 40, if you had to choose, Matt, between Graham Barton, Tyler Guyton, or Cooper Beebe, who are you choosing and why?
Tyler Guyton, probably just the most natural tackle projection. And he also is falling in the rankings now after I think people are just catching up, and I think that's correct. I think as a pass protector, he's kind of what he's like. He's like watered down Olufashano almost. And so I'm comfortable with someone that you can expect to be a plus pass protector, figure out the run stuff later. That's a scheming thing, especially with Cliff's system, where it's a lot out of shotgun. It's moving parts anyways. I think he benefits from that being as athletic as he is. But yeah, probably Guyton in the situation.
What say you, Ian?
Oh man, it's tough, man, because Guyton is a first round guy for me. Not an early first round, probably mid to late. He's in my top 25, 30. So I really like the talent. And I think as raw as he is at times with his hands, I think the leverage acquisition and flexibility for a guy 6'7", 325 with over 34-inch arms is really incredible. I think that being able to build off of that gives me solace. But at the same time, like we talked about with Wiley, right? I think Wiley, what he does for you for Washington, he doesn't box you into a corner. You don't have to take a right tackle. And I look at Graham Barton, the dude can play left tackle, left guard, center if you want him to, right? He's a top 30 guy for me as well. I think with the positional needs that they have on the front, I think you just get Graham Barton, plug and play wherever you need him, and then just go from there. So I think with that, the needs across the board, I would probably lean Barton, but it would be a tough pick for me, man, because I really like Guyton too.
Win-win.
My man, let's say, all right, boys. So, Ian, let's say we're in the 5th round. Washington hasn't gone with defensive secondary yet. You have to choose between Kyrie Jackson or Cam Hart. Which one are you choosing and why?
Oh man, that's a tough one. That's a really tough one because those are two of my favorite guys early in day three. I could see either of them sneaking into the top 100 too because
And
they're
they both
long, they're
fit. They
explosive.
both fit. They're both taller guys that are aggressive.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree for sure. If I had to pick, and this is tough because I really like Cam Hart too. I think Cam Hart's better in support, so I could definitely see him playing in support. I think Kyrie Jackson is a little bit more fluid, but they both got really good size speed. I'm gonna go with Cam Hart actually. I was gonna go with Jackson. I talked myself into Hart. I just think the support. I think the ability to play downhill with confidence is really appealing on his film, and he's got great vertical speed. He can erase deep coverage, and he's a very intelligent player too. You know, you listen to him talk, he definitely understands the football IQ, the nuances. So I think physicality, speed, not quite as fluid as Kyrie Jackson, but I'm leaning in favor of support and physicality here.
I like it. One for Hart. What do you say, Matt?
I'm right there with Ian. I was like, oh, I guess we're disagreeing, but yeah, no, I'm a big Hart guy. Um, I just think he throws routes off timing so well, and he destroys he just obliterates space in between himself and the wide receiver so quickly, and he's long and fast. Thought at the Senior Bowl he was so competitive, just big Cam Hart guy, and I think he would fit the defense so well. And they just have a lack for boundary corners. I mean, obviously you have St. Juice and you have Forbes, but we saw how that turned out, and so I'm definitely just getting as much quality competition in there as possible, and I think Cam Hart has potential to be a starter immediately.
My man. Now, last one I have for you boys to wrap this up. And Ian, I'm going to go to you with this one first. Let's say this isn't a Washington question, just specifically a quarterback question. If it was the last pick in the first round and you want that fifth-year option, right, and you're going to go with the quarterback, if you had to choose between Spencer Rattler, Bo Nix, or J.J. McCarthy, who are you going with?
JJ McCarthy, just because of the
Easy?
youth. Yeah,
100%.
if it's between those three, it's easy. If it's between Rattler, Nix, and Penix, it's a little bit tougher.
I should have picked Penix. All right, change it to Penix.
Man, all right, I would probably
You
go.
shouldn't have
Oh
said that.
man. All right, if it's McCarthy, it's McCarthy, just because he's younger.
100%, no question.
I think those three between Nix, Penix, and Rattler. I'm leaning Penix just because the drive velocity. Nix has a higher raw grade for me, very slightly, but I'm gonna go with Penix because the drive velocity, the arm talent is really there and a high demand, high degree, and the competitive toughness. The dude's a leader. Like I mean, they're all leaders. They've proven that. But I think with Penix, you go back to that Penn State. I think it was against Penn State, that diving touchdown, that pylon run. This dude lays it all on the line, and I think the medicals now that they came back clean at the combine, there's nothing to me that says he can't be a plus NFL starter if he can stay healthy and hone in on some more mechanical issues.
Yeah, even though he had all those injuries, he still was able to use his legs pretty good. It's obviously going to be the foundation of his game in the NFL, but it's still so that he could use. What do you say, Matt?
Yeah, this one's really, really tough because quarterbacks are always so situational based. If I have a guy who I'm comfortable starting for the next like 2 years, I would lean Rattler just because of the tools. Where I'm just going to bet on that.
Right.
If Sean Payton's my coach or someone like that, or even maybe someone from the Shanahan tree, I feel really good about Bo Nix and just the accuracy and the consistent ball placement underneath, and the operating and timing and doing what the offense asks you to do. But yeah, I probably lean with Ian here. If I needed someone to start right away and just give me some kind of ceiling on my offense with a vertical passing attack, being able to attack windows the defense is giving you, but specifically down the field, letting it rip. Yeah, I think Penix probably gives you the most value there, and I think he's the easiest one to project to start right away and have some success. Bo Nix, I think he can start right away. Obviously, he's started 150 college career games, but it's got to be in the right system. It's got to be with the right coach, and obviously that's for every quarterback. But I think Nix, it's specifically that. And Rattler, I think let's get him into a situation where he's not running for his life at South Carolina. Let's tap into those tools, figure out what you're going to do at the next level really well, and then get you kind of into there. So it depends on the situation. But yeah, if I'm just blind drafting, probably Penix for sure.
Yeah, my family's big Virginia Tech fans, so I know about Shane Beamer, the head coach at South Carolina, son of Frank Beamer, and he put out a long tweet on Spencer Rattler saying sorry, basically, to him that they couldn't provide him with more during his time there, which is just devastating to hear. But, boys, I can't thank you guys enough. Being able to come on here, joining heads together, being able to talk with us, be able to give us some really good detailed info about these prospects. Because heading into free agency, it's going to be telling, man. We don't know exactly where this team is going to go headed, and free agency is going to be very indicative of where they are. But, Ian, before we get out of here, we'd just like to plug your social media handle and your show, just in case anybody watching hasn't followed you yet and would like to, sir, along with you, Matt.
Yeah, for sure. At IC_draft on Twitter. I'm going to call it Twitter. It's still Twitter to me.
I still call it Twitter.
I still tweet.
It's never going to change. It's never going to change. But yeah,
Never
at
had love
IC
for an X.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it, man. But IC_draft on Twitter. Any draft questions you have, feel free to hit me up. I always try to be responsive. So,
My man, appreciate it.
Best draft content on the app.
no, man, don't talk me up. Don't talk
It's
me
too
up.
good. It's too good.
It
Even
is
though I'm a
good.
Caleb guy, it's still too good. And also the PFN mock simulator, and does fantastic work on that. That's where I do all my mocks, and you should too.
Yep.
You can follow me on Twitter at MV Scouting. It's the Chris Jones profile picture from the combine. Yeah, hit me with really anything. I love the engagement. Love talking ball. It's my favorite thing in the world.
It's true, and even though we
Yes,
argue, man, I
sir.
do love discussing ball with you, dude, because it is always fun along with you, Ian. Ian is not as he doesn't get into it.
You tweet arguable tape.
I do,
like
all the time.
yeah,
I do it all the time, man. I do it on purpose. That's why I do
I get it. No, I get it. Listen. The traffic goes crazy.
On
The
purpose.
Kurt Bankert of Washington Twitter. I see it.
Instigator.
Boys, I can't thank you enough, man. Seriously, it's been a great Sunday being able to talk with you all. Have a good one. Enjoy the beautiful weather and enjoy the first frenzy week of free agency. It's going to get crazy, boys. Have a good one. All right, everybody. We just spoke with the men, Matt Valdovinos and our boy Ian Cummings. Always appreciate being able to talk with those two. It's always a blast.
Yeah, man.
Blast.
Draft talk is heating up. Obviously, free agency around the corner, but always good to get some draft talk because, like you said, it's about a month and a half away. So it's definitely going to start ramping up soon here.
I want to get your opinion on something because I was doing some prep for the show, and there's a rumor going around. They kind of talked about this in the Discord about like Kirk Cousins, but the Kirk Cousins is not involved with this. I'm pretty sure. There was a theory out there that the Vikings could trade up to 2 with us for the number 2 overall pick. What are your feelings with that? Because when I hear that, there's only one option that comes to mind.
Where are the Vikings picking at, like 7 or something like that?
I think
12.
so. I'll look it up right now.
I think they're either 7 or 12, one of those 2 picks. But
I'm looking it up right now. Keep going.
So I mean, obviously you're going to get a haul because they're so far back and they're going to be giving up the farm for that. But the only way I would even entertain anything like
They're at
that
11.
is 11. Yeah. So, okay. So yeah, they're right outside the top 10. The only way I would even entertain anything like that is if you're giving us Justin Jefferson in that trade as well. And if that's your starting point and part of the trade, then maybe we can negotiate, we can talk. But outside of that, there's no way I'm trading back to 11 with the Vikings. And yeah, so stick it to. But again, like I said,
Dude.
if you're putting JJ in the mix, and I don't know if you can turn that. You at least got to entertain the fact that they putting JJ in the mix for that number 2 pick.
Yes, you're right. You're right. And that's what my feeling was. Like, sure, if you want to talk JJ, then yeah, you can think about going up to number 2. Besides that, I mean, kick rocks, bro. That's how I kind of viewed it. And look, everyone, this is the season that rumors grow. Like
lying season.
It's not really lying. I guess you could say it's lying season. It's just people throw out rumors, throw out things that they hear or think, and so people run with it, and we all get excited about it for no reason. But to wrap up this episode, boys, let's go through our fan questions. And this first one is through the Discord. Our boy Deluxe. Do Abada, James Smith-Williams, or Tuhill get brought back, and who would you keep?
Ooh. Smith-Williams has always been the most consistent out of those 3. I think that and he was drafted here, so it'd be like kind of retaining your own that you drafted, developed, and whatnot, became a rotational player. And like I said, out of those 3, he's been the most consistent. Obviously, Casey Tuhill has his ups and downs, but he's more of like a boom or bust type of guy. He's going to always be like a real like fundamental in like what he does on the field, but he doesn't really give you that boom or that bust for the most part. And a guy like Smith-Williams, like I said, he's fundamental as well, but a lot more consistent. And I would say that I like Obata as well. He's a lot more like a little bit more boom, like he has an explosion, but he's had the injuries and whatnot. So if I had to pick one, I would go with Smith-Williams.
I do agree with you there. I love my boy Casey Tuhill. I do think that he plays hard. He does exactly what you want to be able to do. But I think what you said is perfect about James Smith-Williams. You feel really good about JSW as him with a backup. Because if he's coming in as a rotation, you do feel good about that. But I have obviously been very vocal in saying that we need more speed around the edge. And unfortunately, none of those guys truly provide that for you right away. And so if I had to pick one, I would say James Smith-Williams, just given the fact of what he does provide and the consistency and as a backup. And it wouldn't be something that you would have to overpay for, so to speak, in order to retain his purpose. Now, next question in the Discord from Tim Towner Hall. What will Chicago get for Fields, assuming he is traded and considering that Mac Jones was traded today for a 6th-round pick to the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Yes. Very telling. And obviously, I mean, honestly, you can kind of say Mac Jones had a little bit more success throughout his career than Justin Fields so far. I mean, he made the playoffs in his rookie year. But, Mac Jones goes for a 6th-round pick because they're literally just trying to get rid of him.
But
They
has
want him
Mac
out.
Jones ever destroyed the Commanders on prime time? That's what something has he?
That is true. Nah, but that actually drives your stock up like another 2 rounds because you destroyed the Commanders. Seriously, I think that it's going to be nothing higher than a 4th-round pick for Justin Fields at this point. I don't think. Maybe a team that gets a little bit greedy. Maybe Ryan Poles kind of pulls a rabbit out of his hat and kind of pits a team against itself and kind of does the old Washington trick where they're going against themselves, bidding against themselves, and they go and get a 3rd-round pick for him maybe. But I think that nothing higher than a 4th, I would say, at this moment in time, just because, again, teams know that they're getting rid of him and they're drafting Caleb. So they're kind of like, we'll just wait this out if you don't, and we'll get him from scraps, basically, at this point.
I don't think that I don't think that they trade him. I think that he is valuable as a backup. That being said, if somebody does reach out with a 4th, if anybody were to do that, I think it would be the 49ers. Like, if you're really looking to make a splash or to put them in the best case scenario possible, it is the 49ers, but I don't feel like they'll do that. And it wouldn't be very smart for the Bears to send their former number 1 overall pick to, or draft pick in the 1st round to in the division NFC, right? Because it's good.
Speaking of Mac Jones and the Patriots, they're in the market for a quarterback now. Maybe they give up a 4th or 5th-round pick, or maybe even a 3rd-round pick for a guy like Justin Fields.
Yeah, you're very, very good point. But yeah, I do think it'd probably be a 5th or something like that. But I question if they are going to trade Justin. I have from the get-go. It just, none of this makes sense. None of it. And I'll continue
You'll
to
see this week. He gone.
Dude, they keep saying that every week, though. Because, like, last year, Chicago made
They
the
said
decision.
before free agency starts, and technically it hasn't started yet.
Yeah, that's what they keep telling me. They also kept telling me that Ben Johnson was the favorite to win the job.
That is true.
Still waiting for that.
We've seen crazier things in this league. You're right about that.
Yeah. Now the next question is from Tim. We are going to need a backup quarterback, assuming that this will be a veteran. Who would you consider signing? Will that happen this week? And will that indicate we will be trading back?
I don't think it indicates we're trading back. And I do think that there would be a veteran signing. I don't know if it was like this week exactly, maybe like next week, maybe like that 2nd or 3rd wave of free agency. But I do think they're going to get a vet in here. Obviously, they're going to have a young guy. You're going to want to have not a Jacoby Brissett like himself, but like a Jacoby Brissett type that kind of – I wouldn't say Jacoby Brissett type because Jacoby can still be a fringe starter and can kind of be that bridge guy. But if you want to go the bridge route, then obviously you want a guy like Jacoby. But I'm thinking more of like the Andy Daltons or the world and like the I can't even really think of like a 3rd-string quarterback out of the top of my head. Like the Chase Daniels back when he was in the league, kind of like the Blaine Gabberts of the world, kind of the journeyman guys that they kind of know their role in the NFL at this point, and they know that they're just there to kind of mentor and bring the young guy along and just be that veteran vocal voice in the quarterback room. So kind of guys like that, but I do think they'll sign a vet.
Is Sam Darnold a free agent?
Yeah, I know Standig put out there, be on the lookout for him, but I don't really think it's him as like that smart veteran guy that can kind of bring the young guy along. I think it's him as like kind of that fringe kind of guy that if you need a spot start or a couple starts here and there, he can still get the job done for you. You know, kind of like Jacoby Brissett, but like a lower tier Jacoby Brissett. Like I said, I want that older, like 30-plus guy that's been in the league for 8+ years at this point that, like I said, knows his role, knows that his starting days are pretty much done outside of injury, and he's just there to be that veteran vocal guy in the room that is mentoring and bringing along the young guy. Blaine Gabbert honestly makes sense because I think he was there in Arizona with Cliff. So
that does make sense. Tim, I was obviously assuming that it'll be a veteran. Who would you consider signing? I think we already have one on the roster in Sam Howell. Already proven that he's a veteran. He's played, right? He knows what's coming up to him. Also, he's very cheap. You wouldn't have to make any moves in that regard and spending any more money. But that being said, Sam Howell also has a lot of value to other teams. And so, what does that really do for you, right? But I think that ultimately in the NFL in this day and age, I think the backup quarterback has proven to be very, very important, more so than years past, just because of how many injuries are impacting these starting quarterbacks. And it's very difficult to be able to have a starting quarterback for an entire season. And that's sort of what Sam Howell showed you this year, that he was able, even though he was throwing the ball, getting his ass kicked constantly, he still started every game. That's valuable. Did Justin Fields play every game this year? Not valuable. And that's what I'm saying here is that I think Howell could warrant you something in return. But for the most part, we have that guy. Unless we draft Drake Maye, then the social aspect comes into play here, and it's very weird. I think it's entirely different for Chicago in drafting Caleb Williams and having Justin Fields as their backup. That's a completely different situation than a fifth-round quarterback being supplemented or being taken out, right? Because in Chicago, this is a guy who has the girth. He was given that pedestal. Now you're saying, no, be the backup to the young kid. I don't think that would fly. And so
The only reason, my bad. The only reason I would say that it would be weird in Chicago as well is because you heard at the end of the season the fan was going crazy chanting Justin Fields' names. We want Fields. We want Fields. So now you're just making it super, super, super awkward because the moment Caleb Williams messes up or does something wrong, now you got a Taylor Heineke, Carson Wentz type of thing on your hands where the entire crowd, the entire fan base is cheering for the backup quarterback. And we see how that played out here. You don't ever want that.
yes. Now, this next question, this is from Tim in the Discord, but last one before we get going to the text. His is more math. There are close to 20 starting caliber free agent safeties. What are the odds that Cam Curl gets more than 10 mil a year?
Sheesh. Yeah, unfortunately, like everyone's talked about with all the release of like these safeties and the abundance of safeties on the market, that's kind of just driving down the price for guys. I think before everybody got released and all these people got released, I think they were looking at 12 to 13 mil a year. I think that's what Spot Track was saying. Now I think they're estimating around like I don't think it's anything more than 10. I think it's like between like 9 to 11, somewhere around that range. So you can just split it in half and say 10. So yeah, I do think it'll hope. Unfortunately, I hope my man gets the bag, but I think he might get capped out at 10, maybe 11 mil, 10 and a half, 11 mil, somewhere around there.
I think the percentage chance that Cam gets more than 10 mil a year is high, very high. The one issue that the NFL has at the moment in these free agents is age, is time. Yes, Justin Simmons has 30 interceptions in his career, obviously a playmaker without a doubt, but he's 30 years old. And how many years is Justin Simmons going to want in order to retain him? Are you going to tell me that Justin Simmons is going to be the same Justin Simmons at 34 that he is right now? Can you guarantee me that Cam Curl at 25 at the moment will possibly be a similar player when he's 27, 28 years old? I would say yes. Yes, he will be. And that's the kind of issue that we have here is that Cam Curl being 25, that is a commodity. That is valuable. Same with Xavier McKinney as well. But if you're going to go down the route of Xavier McKinney, you already have the backup information of what Cam Curl offers you here. And you don't have to go far to find out about this guy. With Xavier McKinney, you got to do some homework on it. Now, with these other guys, yeah, you can offer them money, but the age is the value. Just like the reason why J.J. McCarthy is so highly coveted that Ian told us earlier. It's because of the youth, because you do have those extra years to work with. You don't have these with some of these other safeties here. And so, yes, I do think that the safety market has clouded things. But I think a smart person, a defensive coordinator would say, seeing what this kid was put in, seeing how he reacted to it, didn't speak up, continued to go to work, I think that we can ask him to do other things, and we still had this low floor that we could always rely on if it doesn't work out. So, yeah, let's bring in this young kid. Let's put him in here into this already established defense, and let's see what he can do with, because that's a good piece to have, and you're getting a motivated individual. So, yeah, I do think it's a good chance.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like you said, you mentioned Simmons. Like, I think that he's going to set the market for the safeties. And then you mentioned a guy like McKinney, Xavier McKinney. I think that whatever he gets, or whether, I don't know, Cam signs first or he signs first, but whichever one of those two signs first, I think they'll have around the same deal. Maybe one will try to top the other or whatnot. But I think if you got to look at those two guys, once Simmons sets the market, and then I think it'll kind of like fade out from there. But yeah, I do think that, like I said, I hope he gets the bag. Hopefully he gets like 10, 11 mil. But I do think that, unfortunately, it got suppressed with all these guys getting released.
Yeah, now the last question we have for the episode, boys, from the Colonel. What does the Mac Jones trade to the Jaguars mean with respect to the Patriots picking right after the Commanders?
Yeah, I think that it opens up their window to do a lot of options, kind of like we do. We could go the veteran route, which it's probably not going to happen, but we can stay at number two, pick a quarterback. They could stay at number three, pick a quarterback. They could trade out. They could go the Jacoby Brissett, bring him back to New England as kind of like that bridge guy, and then draft, maybe trade back, um, recoup some draft picks, kind of be able to build their roster out a little bit more because they are super devoid of talent. And you have a guy that can play in this league in Jacoby Brissett, while you got a guy like maybe J.J. McCarthy or Michael Penix or Bo Nix, whoever it might be, kind of waiting in the wings to kind of take over eventually. So I do think that, which I do think they'll go. I think they'll go that route. I do think they'll trade back with the Vikings, Atlanta if they don't get a vet, the Raiders, someone like that. But I do think that, yeah, they're going to go the veteran route and they're going to trade back, get one of those third, fourth tier quarterbacks, and put him on the bench and kind of sit and wait in the wings and go from there. So I do think that it like I said, opens the door for many, many options for them to many paths to go down.
Honestly, Colonel, I don't think it really means all that much. I mean, we kind of already knew like how the Patriots felt about Mac Jones. Like every chance that they could, they would bench him, and then that guy would
Yeah.
crap the bed or get injured. Then they'd have to play Mac Jones again, and so we kind of knew this was coming. I just think it's very surprising because Mac Jones at Alabama had a lot of talent outside, and we knew this going into the draft that he wasn't somebody that's going to elevate the entire team, but he can work with what he's given, right? And that's why with New England, it didn't really make sense with what they were doing because they kept giving him weapons that were like, like people that like play
Uh,
Madden would like. You know what I
Devontae
mean?
Parker has been last in the league 5 years in a row with separation, when like the next gen stats
Yeah.
separation. He's been like literally like 132 out of 132 5 years straight. Like that's horrible.
Right, and so that's why, like here, I could almost see it wouldn't be crazy if the Pats stayed pat and took like Marvin Harrison Jr. if he's still there, right? Just because you need that weapon. You haven't had a wide receiver like that since Wes Welker, Randy Moss type stuff. You know what I mean? And so that's why it would be smart to be able to go get that. But I don't think it means all that much just because of what we knew, how they felt about him. But I love what you said about the trade back because it does make a lot of sense for them to do that. Because them being there at 3, they could say, do we absolutely need Jaden Daniels? No, but we'd feel really good with Michael Penix or Bo Nix or Rattler or whatever have you trading back because Mayo, being a defensive-minded head coach, you could see how he'd say, I want to be able to build up my defense as much as possible or my offense, whatever have you, with as many picks as possible and trying to get that kick-started. But honestly, I don't think it really means all that much. But it is crazy because we haven't talked about Caleb Williams once this episode.
Yeah, no. I think a lot of people have just kind of, except for you, I think a lot of people have kind of moved on, that they've just accepted that the Bears are probably going to draft him, and they've just kind of I mean, obviously you are on, not the Colonel, but you're on Twitter. You see,
It's you
you're either
guys'
Drake.
all fault. You guys are all witnessing a murder here, and you're not saying anything. You're not saying anything. You're killing this kid's career, and none of you are complaining about it. It's very upsetting.
Hey, hey, man. Chicago's killing his career. We're just sitting back and watching.
That's what I'm saying. Stop recording it. Start talking. Call the police.
You know what it is, man. No one calls the police. They can take their phones out and record everything nowadays.
And we
World
argue about it.
Star.
Oh my goodness, yes. You're right though. Anybody this week that has piqued your interest as a prospect for Washington? Anybody?
Like free agent or draft or what?
It doesn't matter.
No. Yeah, I'm just looking at those. I did see that. Obviously, I hope that they bring Cam back, and I was thinking that again, there's no like legit veteran in that DB room. So I saw that Ben Standig listed out of guys like Kyle Duggar from, where is he from, the
New
Patriots? I want
England.
to say he's
Yeah,
from the
New
Patriots.
England.
New England, yeah. Kyle Duggar from the Patriots is a guy that you could definitely see a guy like Joe Witt and Dan Quinn kind of use him because he's kind of like that chess piece. You can kind of move around the field, and he can play the linebacker. He can play the back in the box as well, and coverage. So I would look at a guy like that. And they also mentioned a guy like Jordan Lewis, who I know he's a Cowboy. I don't want no Cowboys on my team, but he's a Cowboy. But he's been a solid player. Just if he can stay healthy, he's been a solid player for the Cowboys, and he knows Joe Witt's system. He knows Dan Quinn. Obviously, he knows the defense, so he can come in and be a hit the ground running starter from day one. So I'm just looking at the secondary and then obviously also the edge position. A lot of defense and offensive line, but I'm mostly looking at the defense because I think that they're going to build the defense, not build it, but they're going to add pieces through free agency to the defense, and they're going to draft through offense and kind of build young through the offense.
Okay, I'm with you. Some free agents that have really piqued my interest as of late. I've talked about this guy for years. When he first was a free agent from 49ers, I was interested in bringing him here. Azeez Al-Shaair, 6'2", 228 pounds, 84 tackles, 2 sacks, 1 fumble recovery. He's only 26 years old. He's played for the Titans last season, somebody that obviously Adam Peters is familiar with, that you could bring in, but that could start for you right away, and you could be productive. Andre James, the center from Las Vegas, 26 years old, somebody that's obviously center-ish type, so you could bring in younger, but as a veteran, has some games under his belt that you could bring in, wouldn't be commanding a heck of a whole lot. And this one that I'm pissed off about, I don't like doing this sort of stuff, is Geno Stone, a guy that I really liked coming out of college. I thought he was the best pure cover safety in that draft. This year for the Ravens, 5'11", 207 pounds, 64 tackles, 7 interceptions, and only 24 years old. Obviously, going up right up the road, he wouldn't have to travel all that far to come here, but that's just
Fits the description with 7 interceptions as well. So he fits the description that they're looking for, guys that can be ball hawks.
Right, and then the other one is Jordan Brooks, the linebacker from Seattle. Another guy that I looked at from, I think, Texas Tech, if I'm not mistaken, is where he came out of.
Yeah.
6 foot, 240 pounds, 26 years old, 111 tackles, 4.5 sacks, 1 fumble recovery, 1 forced fumble, 1 interception, and 1 touchdown. Obviously, he's just padding the stats there as well. But if you're looking for not the Lamborghinis of free agents, but if you are looking for young, productive pieces that you can add in here right away and really blossom with what they've been given, I think these guys really do fit that mold a little bit. Obviously, there's bigger names out there, but that's just who I'm looking at the moment. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. I don't think we had any questions on Twitter. I know this is kind of a weird one with how we've kind of mapped everything out, but no, we didn't get any questions. All right, everybody. That's going to wrap us up for this episode. We'll see you guys again on Thursday. Enjoy the week. Free agency is going to be crazy. Let us know your kind of free agents that you would love Washington to sign and why, and how expensive it would be. Obviously, we have a lot of money, but we got to think about it. We need a lot of people as well. All right, everybody. We'll see you guys on Thursday. I'm Kyle.
I am so hungover. I'm surprised I made it through this. I'm Hall.
I couldn't even tell, dude. Couldn't even tell. Where'd you go?
We were just watching the UFC fights at Sport and Social down in Pike and Rose last night.
Oh, snaps. Somebody told me Pike and Rose is really losing it a little bit. But we went. I went and met Donnie yesterday and went over to Donnie and Kat's house. Got to meet their daughter Elizabeth for the first time.
Nice.
And she is so cute. But Donnie gave me the Stella Artois hard cider. Have you heard about it?
No, I didn't know they made those.
Me either. And it's funny because my wife made fun of me because it's spelled Cidre with a little hyphen at the end of it.
Cidre.
That's what I said. I was like, oh, apple cidre. And she was like, Kyle, I'm pretty sure it's cider. And I was like, no.
It's Cidre.
Cidre. All right, everybody. And it's delicious, by the way. It was so good. I was like, dude, you could have this with dinner. He was like, I know, man, it's so good. All right, everybody. We will see you guys again next week. Have a good week. Be safe. And we want to hear from you. Let us know. Washington football. Woo!
Peace.
What's up, everyone? This is Kyle from the Burgundy Zone. We are releasing our own merch to support the show. If you want to rock the Burgundy Zone logo or you want to see Reed's face on your shirt, we got it. We're starting with t-shirts, hoodies, and zip-up. So if you're a fan of the show, make sure you snag one before they are gone. Check out the link in our bio on Instagram, or you can find the link in the description of the video. Thanks again for all your support. Until next time.